The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
Absolutely, it's a victory for common sense, but there wasn't much common sense in the first place that we found the Supreme Court having to get involved with whether deciding the dignity, the security, and even the identity of women has to be determined. I mean, that to me is a huge step backwards. I don't think it should have ever gotten that far. I'm pleased now that hopefully women will be able to protect single sex spaces, their right to be able to participate in sports where they don't have a physical disadvantage against a competitor. And I do hope that people take this with a degree of pragmatism. I noticed that the judge said very clearly that this shouldn't be sort of celebrated on one side or not celebrated on the other, and that actually we all have to have an open mind towards one another. Well, that's fine, but I don't think that there was an open mind when it came to women wanting to protect simply their right to exist as women. It's been a hard campaign for women. They have been vilified, they have been demonized, they have been told that they are unpleasant or transphobic simply by saying, look, we want to be able to be secure when we use changing rooms or bathroom facilities, and say we want to be able to fight in sports with safety. That to me should be paramount in any society. In most societies in the modern world, in the West, should be able to protect women and children. It's been a long, hard fight in many respects for equal rights, for equal pay, for the right to vote. And the fact that this had to go all the way up to the Supreme Court to make a decision on whether a woman is in fact a woman, to me is diabolical and alarming. To me, it's sort of almost a patriarchal backstep where essentially men are fighting for the right to be women, and women have basically been silenced and vilified by saying, well, hang on a bit, what about our safety? Because the fact of the matter is this: there will be people with genuine gender dysphoria who struggle with that condition and do deserve compassion and empathy. But there are a huge section of men who fetishize dressing up as a woman, who want to get access to women's spaces for the wrong reasons, whether it's to satisfy a sexual urge or whether it's to be able to excel in a sport where once upon a time they didn't, whether it's a criminal who thinks that life inside a women's prison might be easier for them. To me, it should have been commonsensical that those should not even have been heard in the first place. And the fact it's taken such a long and grueling fight by a cohort of brave women who decided this was worth the battle on behalf of 50% of the population, to me is mind-blowing. Well, I hope now that all the sports governing bodies will have reference to this ruling and be able to put into practice that men should not be able to compete in women's sports because of the physical disparity. It's not about being discriminatory, although it is about being discriminatory based upon one's physical capability, which is biologically woven into us, whether we're a man or a woman. I also think hopefully now other organizations, whether it's the Girl Guides, whether it's schools who are forcing young girls to use unisex toilets, which is deeply shameful and embarrassing for a lot of girls going through bodily changes. I hope now that this sets a marker that will encourage those organizations and those governing bodies to take a more commonsensical approach and not get stuck in the weeds of what essentially has been a really overinflated and at times extremely unpleasant campaign. I would say to them, why on earth did you think that it was okay to mortgage the safety and the protection of women and girls at the altar of some sort of 21st century faddish craze where the rights of a minority pushing hard seemed to at one point trump what was the basic commonsensical dignity and protection of a majority? And I think we need to look at other areas where we're not actually accounting for people's rights. For instance, there are very often no baby changing facilities available to men. So co-parenting for them at times can be difficult. We haven't had the same sort of debate about dignity and accessibility for people with disabilities. This debate has been blown up out of all proportion disproportion and the weakness and the lack of moral rectitude and the lack of spine of political leaders who wanted to take on the opposite fight in this, basically in order to shower themselves with faux moral rectitude, for me has been quite appalling. Anybody should have been able to stand up and say it is paramount that in the 21st century, women and girls have dignity, that they have an identity, and that they have society's protection. And I think anybody who fought against that or refused to enter that fight for their own advancement, it really does show either a lack of understanding or a complete lack of spine and a sense of vanity, that they would rather adopt these sort of luxury ideologies in order to promote themselves than actually think about wider society. Or, I would love for everybody who essentially was an enemy of the protection of women and girls to be made to have a public apology. But is that going to change anything? No, that's just going to get us back down the route of bitterness. J.K. Rowling is still revered around the world as a brilliant author. But I think this needs to be a cautionary tale, because if you imagine J.K. Rowling today wanted to give to a publisher the Harry Potter books, which have given literacy, escapism, entertainment, education to millions, if not billions, of young people worldwide, I'm sure that in today's society, perhaps until this court ruling, things might change afterwards, they would have been rejected on account of their views. And all of that wonderful material that has been given to the world would have been denied. So I think this really does need to be a cautionary tale as to what certain people have been put through simply fighting for women and girls to be safe.